In view of the increase in both the frequency and the destructiveness of natural disasters, what can a person do to cope? Let us take a look at several practical steps that can be taken. Keep out of the path of calamity. Shrewd is the one that has seen the calamity and proceeds to conceal himself, but the inexperienced have passed along and must suffer the penalty, says the Bible. Proverbs chapter 22 verse 3, this is wise counsel that can apply to disasters. If a warning is given about an impending volcanic eruption, probable flooding, or an approaching hurricane or typhoon, wisdom dictates that those in the affected area evacuate and get to safer ground. Life is more valuable than a house or other material things. For some, it might be possible to choose not to live in an area of high risk. One authority says, disaster risk is geographically highly concentrated. A very small portion of the Earth's surface contains most of the risk, and most future large-scale disasters will occur in these areas. This may be true, for example, in low-lying coastal regions or in areas near fault lines in the Earth. If you can avoid living in such high-risk areas or can move to a safer location, you may greatly reduce your risk of suffering from disasters. Have a plan of action. In spite of all precautions taken, you may still find yourself a victim of an unexpected tragedy. Coping with it will be much easier if you have planned in advance. This is also in harmony with the advice at Proverbs chapter 22 verse 3, quoted earlier. Do you have an emergency kit prepared and ready to go? The publication 1, 2, 3 of Disaster Education recommends including the following items: first aid supplies, bottled water, non-perishable food, and important documents. It would also be wise to review with your family the types of disasters that could take place and what could be done in each case. Maintain a close relationship with God. This can help in any circumstance. The Bible speaks of God as the Father of tender mercies and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our tribulation. Another verse describes him as the God who comforts those laid low. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 verses 3, 4, 7-6. Yes, God is keenly aware of the circumstances coming upon those who put faith in him. He is a God of love and provides uplifting encouragement in various ways. 1 John chapter 4 verse 8, prayers, not for miracles but for God's powerful Holy Spirit, can provide help in any situation. The Holy Spirit can bring to mind Bible passages that can be comforting and soothing to those experiencing adversities. Truly, God's faithful servants can feel as did David, a king of ancient Israel, who said, "Even though I walk in the valley of deep shadow, I fear nothing bad, for you are with me, your rod and your staff are the things that comfort me." Psalm chapter 23 verse 4. Prayer, not for miracles but for powerful Holy Spirit, can provide help in any situation. Fellow Christians help one another. In the 1st century, a Christian prophet named Agabus indicated that a great famine was about to come upon the entire inhabited earth, which, for that matter, did take place in the time of Claudius. The famine severely affected many of Jesus' disciples in Judea. What did the disciples elsewhere do when they heard of their fellow Christians' plight? The account states, those of the disciples determined, each of them according as anyone could afford it, to send a relief ministration to the brothers dwelling in Judea. Acts chapter 11 verse 28, 29, they lovingly responded by providing relief supplies. When severe calamities occur today, God's servants respond similarly. Jehovah's Witnesses are well known for helping fellow believers. For example, when a strong earthquake struck Chile on February 27, 2010, Jehovah's Witnesses quickly responded to help those affected. Carla, whose home was swept away by a tsunami, related, "It was comforting and encouraging to see that the very next day, fellow witnesses arrived from other areas to help us. Without a doubt, Jehovah comforted us through the goodness of those volunteers. I felt loved and protected." Her grandfather, who is not a witness, observed the help being given. He said, "This is completely different from what I have seen for years in my church." What he saw moved him to ask Jehovah's Witnesses to study the Bible with him. Fellow Christians help one another to deal with the effects of disasters. Being in association with those who love God can be a great aid during times of adversity. Even so, will there ever be a time when the earth will be rid of the curse of disasters? Let us see what the Bible has to say on this subject.